Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to Jay vs. Horror. I'm your host, Jay Wall, and today, guys, we are going to be taking on the top 10 horror films of 1983. Now, of course, guys, as always, these are just my favorite 10 films from 1983, and I always encourage everyone to comment below, tell me where I went wrong, where you think I'm crazy, what should be on the list, what shouldn't be on the list, maybe what should be higher or lower on the list. Let me know how you feel, guys. Now, 1983 is a tough year. There's not a ton of heavy hitters on this list like there was with the 80, 81, and 82 list. However, I think there's still a ton of great films from 1983 and that they're just a little bit underrated. Alright, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. At number 10, I have The Final Terror. It's an American slasher film directed by Andrew Davis and starring Rachel Ward, Daryl Hannah, Adrian Zemed, and Joe Pantoliano, Joey Pants. Blending elements of the survival thriller and the slasher film, the story follows a group of campers in Northern California wilderness who are forced to fight for their lives against a backwoods feral killer hunting them as prey. The film was completed in 1981, and it was a response to films like Halloween and Friday the 13th, but it's also very much its own thing. They couldn't find a distributor for a couple years, but then once some of the stars of the film, like Zemed and Hannah, started to become more famous, they were able to find a distributor and get the film out in 1983. A lot of people just throw this one away. They say it's just a rip-off of Halloween or Friday the 13th or something like that. But to me, this one's very different, and it's actually pretty intelligent, and it has a streak of realism in it that those films don't really have for me. So I thought it was pretty great. I also enjoyed the end of this film a lot. So guys, let's check out the trailer for 1983's The Final Terror.
All I can tell you is it's wild, it's practically untouched, and you're gonna love it. It's really beautiful.
There is nothing to be afraid of.
They wouldn't have left us up here all night if there wasn't something wrong.
Your friends aren't really missing. They're not really dead. This is just some kind of joke.
What the hell was that?
That thing that's out there, whatever it is, can't be real. It's just your imagination.
I swear I'm not dreaming! I'm not dreaming!
Or maybe, just this once, you're dead wrong.
Once upon a time.
The legend is told in whispers, an unholy tale of an unknown force, alien to this world.
You don't know what you're dealing with, lady.
Without knowing, they have awakened a terrifying evil.
We want to get out of here!
Alone and unprotected, now comes the naked horror. The Final Terror.
Alright, horror fans, at number 9 we have A Blade in the Dark. It's an Italian giallo film directed by Lamberto Bava, of course the son of Mario Bava. Originally planned for television, the film was made as a nearly 2-hour piece split into 4 parts, which would each end with a murder scene. After the film was found to be too gory for Italian television, it was re-edited to be a feature film. Now, the film stars Andrea Occhipinti as Bruno, and also Michele Soavi, who went on to make Stage Fright, as Tony Rendina. And there's even a cameo from Lamberto himself in the film, so make sure you keep an eye out for that, guys. Now what we have here is a guy named Bruno. He's a composer who's hired to do the soundtrack for an upcoming horror film. So to help him concentrate, he moves into a rented villa for a few weeks. And then several of the tenants and the neighbors start to be murdered by, of course, a razor-wielding killer. During all this, Bruno's weird next-door neighbor becomes a key suspect in the murders. So the movie took some harsh criticism when it came out because I don't really think people understood what Lamberto was going for here. It's not your typical giallo in several different ways. And I kind of compare it to this. I think about like Hank Williams Jr. and guys like Joe Hill, who, his dad is Stephen King. You can't help but be influenced by your father, but you also have a lot of other influences in your life that come through in your work. And you don't want to be known as someone who is making your name off your father, so you kind of try to create your own style within that. And so while this film is very much a Italian giallo in every sense, it also has some themes and elements that kind of feel like the American slashers that came out a few years before it. All in all, guys, it's a great movie, great mystery, good kills. Let's take a look at Lamberto Bava's A Blade in the Dark.
Composing music for movies. Interesting. What are you working on now?
Linda?
Look out, Bruno!
At number 8, guys, we have the iconic Sleepaway Camp. Also released as Nightmare Vacation in the United Kingdom, it is an American slasher written and directed by Robert Hiltzik, who also served as executive producer on the project. It is, of course, the first film in the Sleepaway Camp film series and tells the story of a young girl named Angela sent to a summer camp that becomes the site of a series of murders shortly after her arrival. It stars one of my favorite actresses in the horror genre and a regular guest on the Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In Theater, Felissa Rose, along with Catherine Kamei, Paul D'Angelo, Mike Kellen in his last screen appearance, and Christopher Collet in his first screen appearance. The film is mostly known for its infamous and jarring final scene, which is a huge twist in the movie. And while a lot of people call this a B-level film, I feel like it's pretty good. I think there's a lot of great scenes in this movie, including even the softball game that they're having at the camp and all the little scenes between Angela and the other girls. They're very memorable. And there's also some pretty good kills. I mean, who doesn't want to see a child molester get boiled alive in a pot of scalding hot water? Now, over the years, there's been a little controversy with this film, similar to Silence of the Lambs, Dressed to Kill, or even Psycho, where people say it's a negative representation of transgender people, but I have to argue that I don't think Angela is transgender at all. I believe that Angela is someone who's never had a chance to identify. She was forced into a gender role by someone with their own agenda who was absolutely psychotic for ever trying to do that to her. And so it's my hope that we'll get more and more transgender characters in horror as we go on in the future, where people will be able to take those characters and compare them to these characters of the past and realize that Buffalo Bill and Norman Bates and Angela from Sleepaway Camp are not people who are transgender. They are people who were forced into an identity by someone else and never had a chance to choose who they really are. And maybe even choose is the wrong word there. They just weren't allowed to be who they really are. With that being said, guys, let's take a look at the trailer for Sleepaway Camp.
I've been at a sleepaway camp for almost 3 weeks. And I'm getting very scared.
Welcome to Sleepaway Camp. Someone is watching you.
Hey, Baba, Reba!
Someone is waiting for you. Someone wants to scare you to death.
Turn the wheel! Oh my God!
Sleepaway Camp. You won't be coming home.
At number 7, Curtains. It's a Canadian slasher film directed by Richard Siupka, written by Robert Guza Jr. and starring John Vernon, Samantha Eggar, Linda Thorson, and Lynn Griffin. Its plot focuses on a group of actresses auditioning for a role in a movie at a prestigious director's mansion where they are targeted by a masked killer. Conceived by producer Peter R. Simpson after his box office hit Prom Night, the film was intended to be an adult slasher aimed at older audiences, in contrast to the standard genre films of the time. They started making this film in 1980 and they just had tremendous production problems and had to do reshoots, and it took 3 years to finish the film. So long, in fact, that director Richard Siupka actually took his name off of the film. But in my opinion, this is a great slasher. It has good kills. It has a creepy mask. And in my opinion, it has one of the strongest stories of any slasher from this era. Really smart story. The film has a great opening, and it sets us down a path where we think we know who the killer in this film is from the very beginning to the end. However, when you finally reach the finish of the film, you realize there's more to the story. Let's take a look at the trailer for Curtain.
Behind every curtain, someone is waiting. Someone is watching. Someone is hiding. What waits behind the curtains is exciting, frightening, sensual, terrifying, and bizarre. Curtains reveal what you expect and what you don't. Curtains, the ultimate nightmare.
At number 6, The Hunger. It's an erotic horror film directed by Tony Scott, of all people, starring Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, and Susan Sarandon. So great cast here, guys. All-star cast. The plot is about a love triangle between a doctor who specializes in sleep and aging research and a vampire couple. The film is a loose adaptation of the 1981 novel of the same name, written by Whitley Strieber, with a screenplay by Ivan Davis and Michael Thomas. The groundbreaking special effects were handled by Dick Smith, makeup artist of The Exorcist fame. So guys, here we have Catherine Deneuve playing Miriam Blaylock. She is a vampire, a ancient vampire from all the way in Egyptian times, we see. And around the 18th century, somewhere in there, she meets John, who is played by David Bowie, and he's a cellist. She decides to make John her partner and gives him this gift of what she tells him is eternal life. And that's true, but what she has sold him is only partially true, right? Because we see that 200 years later, John is starting to age rapidly, and he realizes that while he may live forever, he will not be forever young. This sends John to a aging specialist played by Susan Sarandon, and he's trying to figure out how he can reverse this process. Now, this is where the love triangle comes in, as we see Susan Sarandon's character Sarah get pulled into this situation between John and Miriam and actually become a vampire herself at some point in the film. I don't want to give too much away. I think the ending of this film is really great because it doesn't just do the usual vampire thing. There are some new points of focus on the folklore in this film that you haven't seen in other places. I enjoyed it a lot. Guys, let's take a look at the trailer for The Hunger.
Sarah Roberts is in jeopardy.
Hey, lady, how about it?
Stay with her. Help her, for she has begun to feel the awful horror of the hunger. John Blaylock, the hunger has given him everlasting life. Until now, pray for him. Miriam Blaylock. She feeds 1 day in 7 on the unsuspecting, and soon she will turn into something that you will never be able to forget. No matter how hard and how long you try, fear her.
What have you done to me?
Forever and ever.
And life signs terminate right here.
What am I going to do?
The timeless beauty of Catherine Deneuve. The cruel elegance of David Bowie. The open sensuality of Susan Sarandon. Combined to create a modern classic of perverse fear. Haunting, mysterious, sensual, strange, perverse, riveting. The Hunger.
At number 5, The Keep. It's a horror film written and directed by Michael Mann and starring a great cast, guys. Scott Glenn, Gabriel Byrne, Jurgen Prochnow, Alberta Watson, and Sir Ian McKellen. The story is based on the F. Paul Wilson novel of the same name, originally published in 1981. And guys, this movie's hard to explain. Now, what we have here is, it's 1941. We have a unit of soldiers under the command of Captain Klaus Worman, and they're occupying an uninhabited citadel near a small village in Romania to control a mountain pass in the Carpathian Alps. While looting this stronghold, or keep, a couple of these soldiers unwittingly release a malevolent spectral being known as Radu Malasar. This being kills the soldiers, and as the days go by, proceeds to kill several more soldiers, and that leads to even more soldiers being sent. Now, there's a larger story here, guys. It's a big, rich story. There's like a 210-minute cut of this film if you can find it. But I love it a lot because it's completely different from anything else I've ever seen in the horror genre. And it has a great ending too, in my opinion. So let's take a look at Michael Mann's The Keep.
What is this place?
No one knows for sure.
This place was not built to keep anything out. This place was built to keep something in.
You must not stay here.
Something has been released. Something.
Did you find what you were looking for? Did you expect to find me?
What are you? Whatever kills us gets in anyway. Nothing we do, no security works.
What's happening to me?
The Keep. Presented in seven. The Keep. Coming soon from Paramount Pictures.
All right, horror fans, at number 4 we have Christine. It's an American supernatural horror film directed by the great John Carpenter and starring Keith Gordon, John Stockwell, Alexandra Paul, Robert Prosky, and Harry Dean Stanton. The film also has a supporting performance from the beautiful Kelly Preston, who unfortunately just recently passed away, along with Harry Dean Stanton, who recently just passed away, so rest in peace to both of those great actors. The screenplay was written by Bill Phillips, and of course it's based on Stephen King's 1983 novel of the same name. Very interesting, right? The novel coming out the same year as the movie. The movie follows the changes in the lives of Arnie Cunningham, his friends, his family, and his teenage enemies after Arnie buys a classic red and white 1958 Plymouth Fury. I believe the line is, "My bastard brother bought it off the line in '57, or something similar to that. This is one of those stories, guys, where it's kind of weird. It's very different from the book, especially the end. Like probably the last third of the story in the movie is completely different from the book. It's kind of told from a different perspective even. And it's odd because the book was released the same year as the movie, so you would think it would be much closer to the book. But John Carpenter changed things, and we all know how Stephen King feels about great directors changing his stories. You know, John Carpenter making Christine and changing the story. David Cronenberg changed the story a little bit with The Dead Zone. And Stanley Kubrick took great liberty with The Shining, right? And Steven seemed to have a problem with all these versions of his stories, so he went on to direct his own film later on called Maximum Overdrive. And I loved that movie, but it was Steven's first and last attempt at directing for a reason. Personally, guys, I've always loved the movie version, and it's always been for me like a weird, twisted love story. In the back of my mind, I always felt like, why don't people just leave Arnie and Christine alone? Why don't you just let them be happy? So without further ado, you keep a knocking, but you can't come in. Let's take a look at the trailer for Christine.
She is seductive. She is passionate. She is possessive. She is pure evil. She is Christine, a 1958 Plymouth Fury, possessed by hell. Her previous owner is not alive to warn her present one. Once she lures you behind the wheel, you will be hers, body and soul. There is no place you can hide, no place you can run, and nothing you can do can stop her. Because how do you kill something that can't possibly be alive? Christine, body by Plymouth, soul by Satan.
At number 3, we have another Stephen King classic. It's Cujo, an American horror film based, of course, on King's 1981 novel of the same name and directed by Louis Teague. It was written by Don Carlos Dunaway and Barbara Turner. It stars Dee Wallace in one of the most underrated performances in horror movie history, along with Daniel Hugh Kelly and Danny Pintuaro. The film, of course, follows a mother and her son who are trapped inside their car while protecting themselves from a gigantic, rabid Saint Bernard named Cujo. Guys, for me, the movie always exuded fear. That woman being trapped in that car and the knowledge that eventually she is going to have to fight this rabid animal to save her son's life. Just the way the dog terrorizes them, it sticks with you. Now, the book always made me sad because there's several references in the book to what's going on in Cujo's mind, and that he wanted to be a good dog. He always wanted to be a good boy. But once this thing got a hold of him, it almost feels like a demonic possession mixed with rabies to some extent, because he is unable to control himself and his actions at that point. I absolutely love the movie and the book, guys. And if you get a chance, go look up like some of the stuff behind Cujo, because Stephen King was drinking pretty heavily when he wrote Cujo, and there's some funny stories about him handing in his first drafts of that book, and just some great stuff there. So guys, let's take a look at a film that I know all of you, well, not all of you, but probably most of you love, Cujo.
Something's in my closet.
There's no such thing as real monsters.
I saw him really. He has yellow eyes, and he has teeth, and he made sounds.
What kind of sound? Did you fix it?
No, I don't have the tools.
Damn this car.
Take it out to Joe Cameron's. It's only 7 miles.
Well, I think we've arrived, Hatter.
Yeah, but is anybody home?
Hello?
Cujo!
Cujo.
I can't get my damn own seatbelt off.
All right. You pull while I push. Oh, I can't get it. Pull.
Alright, horror fans, at number 2 we have my second favorite David Cronenberg film of all time, Videodrome. It's just behind The Fly for me, guys. Canadian science fiction body horror film written and directed by, of course, the great David Cronenberg. It stars James Woods, Sonia Smits, and Debbie Harry. It's set in Toronto during the early 1980s, and it follows the CEO of a small UHF television station who stumbles upon a broadcast signal featuring violence and torture. The layers of deception and mind control conspiracy unfold as he uncovers the signal's source and loses touch with reality in a series of increasingly bizarre hallucinations. I know a lot of the kids today don't even know what UHF is, but when I was a kid, it was all about trying to get your antenna to get the most channels you could get. Most of us didn't have cable or satellite. We just had a big antenna that got 6 or 7 channels, and if you went out and you turned it certain different directions, you could get different channels. So I was always entranced by the story of Videodrome, that they start to pick up this crazy signal from another place, and it has all these weird, torturous videos on it. But then the story goes in a whole different direction, and it becomes epic, in my opinion. The way that James Woods is manipulated without realizing he's being manipulated is absolutely fantastic in this film, and the conclusion to it is stunning, but it's also something that you finally start to see coming as the film moves along. Absolutely love this film, guys. It's one of my favorite mind F films of all time. Let's take a look at the trailer for Videodrome.
Why would anybody watch a scum show like Videodrome? Why did you watch it, Max? Business reasons. Sure. What about the other reasons?
Max Wren is a victim.
I woke up with a headache.
He has been exposed to Videodrome.
I've been hallucinating for a while, ever since...
What?
Since I first saw Videodrome.
His brain is already receiving video images.
I think that massive doses of Videodrome signal will ultimately produce and control hallucination to the point that it will change human reality.
Soon, his visions will coalesce and become uncontrollable flesh. Videodrome is seducing Max Wren.
Please, come to me now. Come to Nikki.
And Max Wren can do nothing to stop it.
What makes you think I need help?
None of our test subjects has returned to normality.
Television can change your mind. Videodrome will change your body.
Long live the new flesh.
It will shatter your reality. Videodrome, starring Deborah Harry and James Woods. A shocking new vision from the creator of Scanners. Coming soon to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.
Alright, horror fans, we've made it all the way down to number 1 on my list, and this is a rare thing. I have never had a sequel on any of the top 10 lists I've done be number 1, unless that top 10 list was about sequels. At number 1, I have Psycho 2, an American slasher film directed by Richard Franklin, written by Tom Holland, and starring the great Anthony Perkins, Vera Miles, Robert Loggia, and Jennifer's sister Meg Tilly. It is the first sequel to Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 film Psycho, and the second film in the Psycho franchise, of course, and it's set 22 years after the first film. It follows Norman Bates after he is released from a mental institution and returns to his home and the infamous Bates Motel to try and start a normal life. However, his troubled past continues to haunt him as someone begins to murder the people around him while trying to convince Norman that he is still insane. So interestingly enough, guys, the first time I saw Psycho 2, I did not see Psycho 2. This is a good story. I was at my aunt and uncle's house. They had rented this. They were watching it with my mom and dad and a few other friends, and they kicked all the kids out of the living room. They made us go sit in the kitchen and play a board game while they watched the movie. So we knew what they were up to. We knew they were watching something they didn't want us to see. So what we started to do was each one of us kids would go into the living room and ask for a glass of water, or we would go in there and give our mom a hug, whatever we had to do to get a few seconds where we could see what was happening on screen. And there was about 8 of us, and I was probably one of the younger ones. And we kind of tried to piece Psycho 2 together. We were telling each other the story of Psycho 2. None of us had seen the original Psycho, so we had no idea what was going on. and we somehow still managed to terrify each other to death. Now, years later, when I went and watched this film, it lived up to the hype. I loved it. In my opinion, it's one of my favorite sequels of all time. It's at least in the top 3 with Aliens and, Texas Chainsaw 2, Exorcist 3. It's that kind of quality of a sequel. It really lives up to the hype. It's a great film, a great continuation on Alfred Hitchcock's original premise. I love this movie, guys. Let's take a look at the trailer for Psycho 2.
I have a petition here signed by 743 people against Norman Bates' release.
Madam, please sit down. This matter is being represented by the district attorney.
Norman was not convicted of murder. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Don't you realize they're going to release a homicidal maniac?
I'm asking you to sit down, Mrs. Loomis.
It's all too obvious. Our courts protect the criminals, not their victims.
Norman Bates is judged, restored to sanity, and is ordered released forthwith.
It's 22 years later, and Norman Bates is coming home.
I own a motel not too far from here. And you'd be welcome to spend the night in one of the empty rooms if you'd like. Good night, Mary.
And he's back in business.
Who is this? My mother is dead. I'm telling you, there was a note on that wheel from my dead mother.
Norman, it couldn't be your mother. It had to be someone else.
But trust her. She would never do anything to hurt me. No. She'll kill you. I know she will. No, I won't do that. You can't make me kill her.
22 years later, Norman Bates is home. Psycho 2.
It's starting again.
All right, horror fans, that does it for 1983. This was a fun one. There weren't a lot of slam dunks in this. You had to really reach, and it's very subjective because you're just picking your favorites out of a group of films that anybody could easily say that, maybe Something Wicked This Way Comes belongs in here. There are other films I'm sure people will say belongs on this list because it is so subjective. I mean, there are no real slam dunks, just heavy hitters on this list until you get to maybe the top 4. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and check us out on Patreon. We're going to put the link down below in the description. Patreon is a way where you can help support small podcasters and YouTube creators and keep their shows going, and that's what we're trying to do. For as little as $2 a month, you can help support the show, and we'll put you on our monthly Patron Pick Show where we'll talk about any movie you want us to or any horror topic you want us to discuss, and we'll give you a shout out and some love for helping us out, guys. We love you, horror fans, and we will talk to you, as always, the next time we've got something worth talking about. Bye.